I should have gotten you a flag today from Kreger's.
I used to carry this in my purse, but I don't think this should be good. Just kidding. You were gonna ask Heather something today. What were you gonna ask her? You asked about it yesterday. And then
What?
I was like, you need to ask, when can you get turned on here? Or how? Is it you?
Almost finished aerospace, about half of work history.
Leah, look up. Look at Luis.
Hi,
Hey, Leah.
I'm on mute because I'm outside and there's dogs barking and somebody's building a house down the road, but I just want to be outside. Hi, Jamie.
Where's your instructor? Yeah, you can come over and hang out in our office if you want.
I may.
Bring the
may.
kids.
Are there any kids in there?
Oh, yes. The gym is right behind us, so if they come out half naked, it'll be the top half. It'll be okay.
That's all good. I'm used to that.
They're playing video games.
Nice.
How are your boys?
They're good. Everybody's
Doing
doing
okay?
well. We have lots of extra time on our hands. And I mean, even after you get out and we go play tennis, they play golf, we ride bikes. And then there's still hours. So
Yeah.
we're just
Yeah.
playing probably more iPads and video games than normal.
A lot of video games, sleeping in.
Yeah. Oh
The
my gosh.
meals are
I
all
don't
messed
even
up 'cause they sleep through breakfast. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Hunter, usually my oldest. I mean, he's usually up by like 11ish. And I'm like, okay, well, breakfast is done. It's time for
Right,
lunch.
and put away.
But he gets his work done, and they have so much time that I'm like, I don't care, whatever you want to do,
There's one. Hi,
There's
baby.
one.
Oh, hi.
Say hi, smile and wave at people since
Hi.
you came to the video.
I was just looking.
There's golf in the loft. There's golf, cornhole in the gym with little like foam balls, and there's golf on the trails with a wheelbarrow.
Nice.
So they've all been working on their game.
There you go. See, I know. I'm like, I think they had cornhole out the other day. Ours have gone out a couple times to Dalton and actually played because you can at least play. But
There's Nerf bullets everywhere, and there's airsoft weapons. Here's a bullet on the desk.
yeah,
We live in a man cave.
yeah, me too. Good to see you.
Her face just came on. She's here. I think she's probably having Wi-Fi problems.
I bet so.
This is in a man cave.
Or 2-year-old problems, or both.
I need to turn it on. How do I turn it on?
I think is, where's your volume?
Oh, gosh. Rebecca, are you in the office?
Yeah, I have to meet with Sean at 2, so this is the only way I can make it work.
Oh. I haven't seen that place in a month.
I know, it's
forgot
a
what it
little
looked
odd.
like. Weird.
Very quiet.
Yeah.
Rebecca.
Yeah.
Hi. If
Oh,
you're at
hey.
the office, do you mind printing an MLS sheet for me?
Sure.
I have a showing at 3. And don't be surprised if I change shirts like while I'm on here. I'm getting ready for it. But let me see. It's Laura Ammerman's new listing.
Okay.
I think it's on. That would be so helpful.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks. Let's see. I think it's
Are you want it for you or your client?
yeah, will you just do like a
Both.
detail sheet for me? Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, it looks like it's 706 Lupine Drive.
Sure.
Thank you so much. And
You just
I'm
want me
gonna
to set
disappear
it
again.
on your desk.
Yeah, I moved desk, so I'm in between Gail and Shannon now,
Okay.
on the other side of the wall. You'll see all my stuff.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna disappear again because I'm like ironing this other shirt. So see you guys.
Do you guys see the email from Gina about the Coldwell Banker masks?
That was kind of interesting, huh?
I ordered them, but just FYI, it says 17 business days.
Oh,
Oh,
so
geez.
So
it's,
if you're gonna get an order in,
About
it would be
same
good
as
to do
everything.
it sooner than not.
wow.
Has anybody been able to find booties? No.
Maybe at Home Depot.
We haven't
I was wondering
Yeah.
Home Depot or even maybe the Napa stores or auto stores. They sometimes carry them, don't they? I don't really know.
got a
but-
box of gloves at Napa.
Did you?
Mhm.
What was that?
Blair said Ace Hardware had them this winter. Who knows if they still do? But
Oh, okay.
I unmuted my microphone. I'm going to put you on speaker on my phone. So hold on one second. Okay, Heather, you're on speaker.
Hey, I am so sorry, guys. I've been trying to log in for over 15 minutes now, and I just don't know if this is an internet thing or I don't think it's a computer thing. So anyway, the two choices are I'm going to run to work and I can be there in 15 minutes and load it and be ready by it's 1:25. I could be there by 1:50. Or would you like to reschedule, say, for tomorrow? It's totally up to you guys. Just shout it out if you can hear me.
Can you guys hear Heather?
Yeah, I can hear.
I'm more for trying to get this done today, but
Guys, I'll be. Is anybody opposed to that?
no,
Say if I can get there 20
all right, I
minutes
did.
ish.
I'm
Yeah,
fine
that's
with
fine.
that.
that works.
Yeah, that's
Okay, I
fine.
will try to do that, and then I'm probably gonna have to send out a new invite because actually I think I did it for 2 hours. We should be good, and if it cuts us off, I can just. It's a small group. I can just put you on like a speakerphone type thing. So it's this whole thing is just jammed. Now my whole computer is jammed because I've tried it too many times. So
I saw her
I will
once
hurry off to work,
last week.
and I
maybe?
will
Yeah.
call each one of you or
Yeah.
or join when I can. I guess just do your own business,
Thank
and you'll probably
you.
hear me when I
Sorry.
when I get on.
Okay.
Sorry about that,
Okay.
guys.
No, no problem.
Okay,
Okay.
Heather,
Okay, bye.
hold on.
What?
Can you hear me?
What is that for? Yeah, no worries. What is it for? What is it? Oh, that's sweet. I didn't.
Hey, Blair, can you hear me?
Let's see. Yeah, I can hear you.
So was Heather going to rejoin with this link, or was she going to send a new one?
I wasn't sure. I think she said both.
Okay, so I guess we'll just wait.
Yeah.
All right.
I just won't know. I guess if she sends it, I would imagine she would send a new link, and we'll get it in our email, and then, you know, I don't know if I get emails when. Oh, I guess I do. So, but I don't think she's gonna be there yet. I'm trying to figure out. I'm doing my hair and stuff now, but I might as well like go to the office and get the MLS sheet and do the class there.
For the
You
property
know?
that you're showing this afternoon?
Yeah. It's really nice of Rebecca to print that out. So.
Oh, did she print it for you?
Yeah. Just so I can like run it. I was planning on just grabbing it and running, but maybe I'll just, once I get ready, I'll go there to the office and do the class there.
Yeah.
So.
Gosh. All right. Well, I'll just keep an eye on the email too.
Okay, cool.
Hey, Heather.
Give me a thumbs up. You can hear me? Awesome. So sorry about that. We lost Josiah, right?
We lost a few people. Do you want me to send out a group text, or if you have their numbers, send a group text? Yeah. Because I'm not sure if they thought you were going to send a new link or join with this one.
Do you remember who it was? I know Josiah was on.
Josiah, Luis, Henry, Rebecca. I think that's it. Josiah.
Is Blair gone? Oh, she's there.
No, she's here.
She's here. I see her. Never mind.
Yeah. Do you remember who else was at the meeting, Leah?
I feel like you named them all. I thought there were only 6.
Okay. So I know Rebecca is probably tied up now because I just got to the office and I see that she's working with Sean.
Yeah, Sean did.
But let me see if I get any text back, but I'll get started. I'm really, really sorry. I value you guys' time, and that was, I got right on at work, so it must have been an internet thing at home, because I was on for an hour and then it just, Zoom wasn't working. Anyway, so what I did when Stacy was asking me to teach this class is I went up to, I used to do a blog. Thank you for coming back, Josiah. I used to do a blog. When the market crashed, I did a blog because I thought, what else do you have to do all day? There's nothing else going on, and blogs were really like kind of cutting edge back then. So I wrote this article because every time I dealt with people who were buying land, it was like the same thing. You had to go through the whole process, and it would take 6 months for them to find a parcel they liked. So I wrote down everything about buying land, and I went back to it yesterday. This is from like 2013. No, it was before that. And it's a really good post. So I actually wanted to go through what I had written then and then add in some points to it. But do interrupt me as I'm talking if you have questions and I'm not explaining something. So the way I was thinking about doing this is I'm going to talk about all the factors to consider with your buyers when you're on the buying side. And then I'm going to go through some of the pricing part of it. And Stacy, I will get to your question about like mining claims and stuff like that too. You get a lot of random questions in land, and you can go down rabbit holes really easily with customers where you start going, oh, you want a mining claim, and you spend like hours researching something and it ends up, you're never going to get paid on it. So why people look at land. So there are, Leah, like what the kind of clientele that you're already dealing with, you're going to probably, and also with Luis, you're probably going to be dealing with a lot of people who know what they're doing. They've been doing this before, and they're just like slam dunk. They want to buy in Edgemont Highlands. They want to buy in Dalton Ranch. Those are not a lot of the clientele that I spend a ton of time with land on. It's more of the other people that will give you a call and they say, oh, well, some of the reasons I want to buy land are I want to live in it for a while before I build my house. I just want to like park my trailer on it, or it's something I can invest in right now and maybe I can resell and make all this money, or they think it's going to be cheaper. Like I'm going to build my own house and I'm going to do everything myself, or sometimes they can't find what they're looking for in houses. And so they think, oh, I'm just going to build this all myself and I'll just get the contractors later. I just need the land now. So there's a lot of people, when you're asking people questions about why they're looking at this, they call you and they go, hey, can you look up this property for me? And you see it and you're going, okay, what are you looking for? Like, so just ask them what they're trying to do. And you can nip some of those in the bud really quickly. And the better I got at real estate, the less I was spending 3 months going down a rabbit hole with someone where I was sort of, as a new agent, wanted to let them make all the decisions. I'll give you all the information and you can make the decision. And other times when you got to be a better realtor, you're like, look, you two are not going to be able to figure this out. You're going to live in a trailer while you build your house, and you're somehow going to come up with all the money yourself, and you're going to have kids, and you're having like your full-time jobs. Like you guys are going to get a divorce in 6 months if you go down this way. Please think about it tonight. And then they come back and go, okay, let's just look at houses. So as you get to be a better realtor, it's not telling people what to do. It's guiding them and saying, have you considered this? Have you thought of this? So you get a lot of questions on very cheap land. So if you did an MLS search right now, and as a brand new agent, if you're still in that, like Blair, you're way farther along than this, just download everything on the market. Take like the under 100,000 today and spend a couple hours looking at every single piece of land and say, oh my God, like look at all that's available. Then go to the next section tomorrow, maybe do houses a different day. But just studying what's on the market will give you a lot of insight. But when you see cheap land, there's probably, I'm just guessing, 150 parcels in La Plata County under 125,000. Like cheap means no water. Cheap means either you can't build on it, or there's no water, or the cost of building is so astronomical that you're actually spending more money buying the cheaper lot and trying to make it work. Like up at Perg when I was selling, this isn't just like out in the middle of nowhere land. This is like at Perg when I was selling, we had a $49,000 lot with resort services. Yeah, but like even architects would call and say, I went by that lot, there is no way to build on it. I'm like, I know. So all these people thought, oh, I'm gonna save money. I'm like, no, you're not saving anything. Like, just know that. Cheap means no water, usually, except for when you're dealing with development property, because water is very hard to get in La Plata County. Covenants, keep in mind that people, I'm not even getting there. I'm going to my post and I'm gonna start reading. So when I wrote this post, it was when land was starting to make its way back into the market. When the market crashed, no one was looking at land. They were buying up all the cheap houses, and then they started kind of looking at land again. So what people were thinking is that when you can't find what you're looking for in town or where you want to be, people end up having to travel an additional 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes from where they want to be to find anything. And what it also was is when you have shrinking inventory, you don't have a lot of stuff, people start looking at land. So when you have buyers, consider that if you're purchasing land in Southwest Colorado, especially near Durango, you know our area changes within a few miles of drive in any direction you drive from town. To the north, there's a valley, high, you know all this, but I'm just saying, when you're explaining to buyers, you go north, there's a valley, high alpine forest, high snow loads. Is that what you're looking for, Mr. Buyer? To the south, there's a mesa with irrigation, but there's also a chance you get wind on the mesa. So is that kind of what you're looking for? Southwest, you have dry open land with more desert area, but you have those gorgeous La Plata views. Is that kind of what you want? No snow load, but you're more in the desert. But no matter where you want to be, you just kind of want to guide people and say, okay, you want land, because they'll come in and they'll be like, I want land in La Plata County, and I come here every year and I just want a little piece of land. Okay, like, what are you looking for? And what do you want around you? And how much space do you really need? Could you settle with a half acre, or do you need that 35 acres? Because some people come in and they're like, I want just so much land. And then you have to kind of talk them, do you have the time and the resources to do weed management? Do you really want to be taking that on, or do you just want something simple that you can lock and leave? So water situation. Southwest Colorado has many water critical areas. I'll send this article to you later. In many places, you can't subdivide a property with less than 40-acre sections. And that all has to do with water. Like, water's all been parceled out and it's all been divided. So when you go out, you get a buyer from out of town and they say, well, what I was thinking is, they'll say, I want 50. Oh, are you, somebody asking a question? Nope. Just break in if you are. I'm going to turn my volume up so I can really hear if you guys are asking a question. Okay. So let's say I want 50 acres. And your question to them is, are you trying to raise cattle? Like, because some people are you trying to do what with it? Why do you need 50? Like, how did you come up with that number? Same with like a seller. They price their home. You're like, oh, what are you thinking your house is worth? They go, 520. I'm like, how did you come up with that number? Just curious. So it's the same with land. How did you come up with 50 acres? And they might spit back, well, what I was thinking is I want to do a subdivision. I'm going to like parcel out 5-acre sections, and just know for the most part, you can't do that in Colorado. It's usually, if there's a 35-acre section, that is the smallest you get, because you have to be able to prove certain things to the county to be able to be a subdivider. So from the people I've talked to, like the original guy that divided up Shenandoah, they have said they would never do it again and go through the process of subdividing if they ever had a chance. It's not simple, it's not easy, and it's super expensive. So if they have the means, if maybe they want to live on 50 acres, they probably want to get 35 times 2 acres, right? 70 acres, then they'll always be able to at least subdivide, because you need at least 35 acres to subdivide unless you can prove water. So water's critical. In most areas, you can't go beneath that unless you have some insanely good producing well that can be used for those parcels. So know anyone that comes in, it's complicated. And if it's less than 35 acres, there's a good chance you can't do it. Unless you see a parcel out there that says subdividing has already been approved for subdividing. Just know, like, rules change. I had a guy, North Animas Valley, he owned 40 acres. It was 30 acres. It was 30 acres, but it was a road split it, okay? And this is in Meadow Ridge, the place where the fire started, the 416 fire. Gated community, super awesome layout, but he had bought a parcel, maybe it was even 50 acres. It was a lot of property. This is like at least a $500,000 property. And he said, well, it's divided exactly in 2. So, and I'm going to subdivide it. And he had been allowed to do that for 30 years. But the year he called me, the zoning and the planning department had just decided that in the Animas Valley, you could not subdivide in any less than whatever acres. And he was totally out of luck. So here's this guy that he didn't get the memo from his last listing agent, and he just put, there was like $300,000 he left on the table because the rules changed. So no matter what the rule is now, if it's not in stone, it could change tomorrow. So if you want to know what the water supply is like in an area under the property you're considering, the easiest way to do it is to go on GIS. So you look on to get, so you get like all the parcel maps just brought up in front of you, like a big Google map. So you're saying, okay, my guy wants to know, he really has his heart set on doing this 30-acre parcel out in the middle of nowhere. And the seller really thinks there's good water under there. I just have this feeling there's good water under there. So what you can do is you can pull up all of GIS and pull up the layer on GIS. You can learn how to do that pretty easily, where you can find out what all the wells are producing in the area. And you can actually make a map for people that said, okay, the neighbor has a well that's 500 feet deep and it produces 1 gallon a minute, when on its best day, the day that it was drilled. And so even though you don't know that the parcel you're looking at buying or your buyer's looking at buying is going to have the same kind of water supply. Just know that it changes from area to area, but at least you can make a map for someone and know that, look, we're going out to looking at land, but there's no way in heck you're going to find a land with water in this area. So that's one way you can search. You can also go to the Division of Water Resources. So they have a water commissioner for every area. And the lady I used to call, she was awesome. You could just say, look, I got a buyer and they're looking at these 3 different areas. Is there an area that you think has better water than another? And they will just talk to you on the phone about everything they know about wells in the area. And it's super cool and it's super helpful and free. So water commissioners, you don't have to go there anymore. You just obviously call them. And you will be making so many calls to the Division of Water Resources that it'll be in your head. I haven't dialed the number in like 4 years and I still remember 247-1845, because they're just one of those people you really want to call, help do your homework. So you're not wasting your time. If you're in a subdivision with central water, you want your buyers or you would do the homework and make sure that the advertised water tap actually is available and know the timeline to getting it installed. Forest Lakes is a perfect example. It's all central. You have to have central water there. You can't go drill a well. And that's a law of water. If there is water in the area that's central, you can't get a permit to drill your own well. But there are lots that are really cheap and you can get a permit, you can get a tap. That's like part of their rules that you can get a tap. But when you make the call to the Metro and you say, hey, I'm looking at buying this lot over here, my buyer's looking at it, what's your timeline if I had a contract tomorrow? And I think the way it works is when you have a contract and you have a need, like you fill out the form and say, here's my $1,000 or whatever, I want my water tap. Then you go to the end of the line and they say it's like 3 years to wait. So maybe this is the way it used to be, but just know just because it says it has a tap doesn't mean it's coming to you tomorrow. And it might be something that you have to hold on to that land for a long, long time before you get the water. Don't assume if it's in even if your neighbor is tapped in or the way the property is advertised, that's the way it is. So let's skip on to irrigation. Let's say you have a buyer that is interested. I only want if it's irrigation. I'm not going to go way into irrigation, but just know it's not a one size fits all. So irrigation out in some of the Hesperus areas, there's this one place, I think it's called like Hay Gulch, Dry Gulch, one of those. There's one pretty good water system that goes, you got the La Plata River and it's like up the hill from the La Plata River, but it's not a long season. You get like maybe a month and a half of irrigation and it comes in fast and quick, but then you have nothing the rest of the year. So you have to do the research. And if you have someone that wants irrigation, you just have to ask them a lot of questions. Everybody's just like a research project with every buyer. What are you planning on doing with that irrigation? Do you want to have like a garden? Do you want to have animals? You know you're going to have to hay them. So how much property do you need? And have you really considered all these things? So find out more about that. You have to actually call the irrigation company to find out what water shares are worth unless the listing agent did that research. Find out how long the ditch usually runs each year, what your priority is, and how much a share is in acre feet. So moving on, because you could spend all day on those 2 items. What's the soil and ground condition like? La Plata County has areas of shifting soil and areas of shallow bedrock, both of which most likely would cause you to need an engineered foundation. Now, this is different now. It used to be that if you bought out in Trappers Crossing or Shenandoah, you get this thing that comes in your title work of all places that says you are in an area of a geological hazard, and it's still there. You still get that in your title work. But what it means is there's shifting soil in the area. So they used to have to build the foundations way bigger and stronger than they would in other places in the county. And from what I think that you now need those special foundations everywhere, no matter what. So I don't think it's like more expensive over there, but just know that's one thing we do have here. There are places where the sand, or it's kind of like sand. I mean, I have it in my house right in town. You just don't have really good soil in some spots. Then you have things like up at Perg where, as far as I understand, the geology from one side of 550 is totally different than the other. So if you're selling land and the people have $150,000 they can spend, they might do better to spend $30,000, $40,000 more on the west side of the highway, because foundations are super easy to put in, then on the east side of the highway, take a trip through Lake Purgatory sometime if you're up that way. And if you have anybody that's been building a house, you will see just granite everywhere. And it's because they have to blast into the rock to make a space that they can put both a septic, obviously for the well, you got to go through all that to get the well too, and then for their foundation as well. It's the same up in Engineer Village, all that stuff up by Perg. It's just super expensive. If people want a home up there and they have the money, that's one thing. But if the person says, I'm looking at spending $60,000, I have the money for Lake Purgatory, or I have the money for something in a little subdivision where it's all kind of Aspen Trails out by Lemon Lake, or I could be up at Lake Purgatory. If you know enough, you tell them to talk to an engineer or something, and they'll tell them, oh my God, you're building up by Lake Purgatory. It's going to cost you so much money to blast through all that rock. Over in Aspen Trails, you might hit a boulder or two, but it's a lot easier to build. So those are kind of some interesting things. I've always said selling land is so much more complicated than selling houses, because before a house is in, there's so many things that could go wrong. They could change, they could cost somebody a lot of money. What is the size of the lot and it is legal? One last thing on the septic thing and the soil and the ground condition. Just know your officials are your best free call. So San Juan Basin Health, they do a really good job talking to you about what it would take for septics. If you talk to, if you talk to maybe, I know there's somebody at the county you can talk to. It used to be Butch Knowlton. I don't know if it's still him. They can talk about like geologic hazards in certain areas or what ground conditions are like. I don't really know who off the top of my head who you'd talk to about shifting soils, but it used to be somebody at the county. And then what is the size of the lot and is it legal? I have run into properties that were illegally subdivided or too small to support a legal well and septic today as the laws have changed. Don't assume that if a property is on the market, it is legal. So there are lots, most of them people know are illegal now, but it was the fact years ago that you could have a half-acre property. Think of how small that is. That's like tiny, a half-acre property, and you could have a well and a septic next to another half-acre property with its own well and septic. So what do you think happens to the well of one when you have a septic right next to you? It's just not a good situation, but they did divide up these properties in half an acre. Sierra Verde has some. Aspen Trails has a few that are under an acre. It's like 0.98 acres. Not legal to have, well, it might be now, but when I was selling, it wasn't legal to have the well and the septic on it if it was less than an acre. That's like the smallest you can possibly have in the county to have both those things. So the people who own a property don't always know this. They put their house up on the market or their lot up on the market, and they're like, hey, realtor who's not going to do their job and look into these things, I have a half acre and I'm interested in selling it. They're like, okay, they put it on the market. And you have to do the research because you end up finding out, you do a quick call to the well people, and they're like, oh, you can't get a permit on that. No, it's totally illegal. So the only best use for those properties are if the neighbors buy them to make their half acre an acre. And sometimes when it's just smaller than an acre, you can buy 0.02 acres from the neighbor, but you actually have to get it surveyed to make that work. Just know if it's an old subdivision and you have a tiny acreage, make sure it's legal. You don't come across it too often, but I see a couple every year that are going to have some sort of issue with that. How does the property orient? I don't have to spend too much time on that, but do know there's places, just look around you with even some super expensive properties up where I used to live in Lemon Lake. It goes through a beautiful winding road that goes up towards the lake, but those properties down there, they're $1 million houses. They get absolutely no sun for like 2 months out of the year. They're dark, they're cold. So talk to your people. If it's in a really hot spot, they're thinking about building this beautiful passive solar house in the middle of the desert, and you're like, oh my God, it's gonna be so hot there. Or if you just realize, you look around you, tell them what you know about orienting the property, and they might want to, if they're thinking about doing it themselves, to just talk to someone about those kind of things. What are restrictions on the property? That's an obvious one. Find out if your people want to do something funny, like I want to raise goats, I want to have horses, I want to have a fence, I want to, whatever it is, make sure that you can do that on that parcel, but there's no restrictions, or if there are, exactly what those are. That would be the same as a house though. are there mineral rights in demand in this area? So mineral rights aren't usually transferred with any property in our county, at least. And to do a title search to find out, you get that question all the time. Well, can I find out who owns my mineral rights and I'll buy them? And from what it used to be, it was $8,000 to $10,000 to even start a mineral rights search. Usually those don't transfer with title. They just kind of transfer, like this grandma gave it to her grandson who gave it to their neighbor. And so to do that chain, it's called a landman. I think that Erica in our office, I think that's kind of what she does, some of the research for gas and oil companies, but I could be wrong about that. But I've known people in the past that do that. It's super expensive, and just say, you know what, finding your mineral rights is probably not going to happen. So don't you as an agent waste your time trying to help someone with things like that. Electric costs are crazy, and something you have to also know. If you see an electric line near a property's edge, it doesn't always mean it won't be expensive to tap in. So you can have older neighborhoods where in the older neighborhoods, the electric service didn't used to have to go to each lot in order to subdivide it. It could just kind of be down there and the property's up here, and how are you going to get that easement to bring it in? So the property that I bought in Lemon Lake 20 years ago, I have a neighbor, 2 up. I was able to get an easement. There were 2 electric lines way far away from me, and I had to buy an easement from someone to bring mine in. So I had nice neighbors. But there's another person that can't get it, and they would have to go through like 3 properties to get it. It was like 20 grand. And you can't just like divide that 20 grand into 3, all the people that are going to use that line. Does that make sense? Like, I got to bring the line in from 800 feet away, but I got to pay for it. And my neighbors get to tap in for free. So that's the way it works with electric. Be aware, you see an electric line that goes right up to the property line. Guess what? After closing, you find out that's not the property line. You didn't get a survey done. It's like 3 feet from the property line. And now you got to get an engineer out there, and they're going to charge you $1,000 to bring it just a little bit to the property line. Don't ever assume anything with electric. It's the same with when you're on the selling side. Your seller says, oh yeah, that's at my property line. Do the research. Call an engineer for an appointment. It does cost you money to get an engineer to go out and stake or to look at it and say, yes, that is on the property line. Like, I can prove it, and here's a little letter to do it. Know that that does cost money to have someone meet them, but it's worth it because it is crazy. You can be literally 10 feet away from the electric line, and it's thousands and thousands of dollars. Oh, because that's part of it. If that electric line was built to get the electric line right to where it is now, but you're adding like an additional service onto it, like you're going to have another house, they might have to upgrade the whole line to get to you. So that also is on you. They have some sort of restructuring where you get some money back afterwards, but just don't assume anything. Oh, I see electric. Maybe you see a big power line, like one of those big ones, and you think, oh, you could just drop from that, and you call LPA and they go, no, you can't drop from that. We actually have to take it from that pole over there because this is a transmission line. You're looking at doing it off of that. So complicated. And then ask people how soon they're looking to build. Let me see if there was anything I missed. Horses, fence, gas. Okay, I'll get to that. How soon you're looking to build. You can have people who say, I want to hold on to the land for 2 years and then I'm going to build. Find out what their finances are. If they're going to buy the lot free and clear, that's fine. But when if they're going to build their house free and clear, even better. Like, you don't have to worry about those people. But if you know they need a loan to get the house done, even if they don't need a loan for the land, it's tricky. When I built my house, and anybody else who's done it, you needed, at least at the time, 25% of what the house was eventually going to be worth, not what it cost to build, not what the land is worth, 25% of what the house was going to be worth in order to qualify for even buying the lot, because you roll it into kind of the construction loan, and then you only have so long to get it built. So it was easier for some of my clients to get the entire loan to build their house than it was to do it in stages. Oh, I'm getting a land loan. Land loans are really hard to get. Land loan, and then, oh, someday I'll pay that off and then I'll get a house loan. It doesn't always work that way. So just make sure they've talked to a lender if they need to. Even if they say, we're buying this lot free and clear, it's fine. Next year, we're going to have to look for a loan. Just say, maybe you want to talk to someone now before you actually buy this to make sure everything is going to work out for you. let's see if I had anything more on the financing part of it. Oh, while I'm on that, once you buy the land, the taxes change. Now, okay, so if you're buying it off of a larger piece, that's ag. So there's ag status in La Plata County where your taxes could be $10 on 200 acres because you're using it for agricultural purchases or purposes. But as soon as you buy 2 acres off of that, now that is zoned residential and your taxes will skyrocket. That catches people every time, and it's something you have to warn your buyers about if they're planning on holding it. They tax our county taxes land at a much higher percentage than houses. So even if your lot is only worth, my lot, what that I built on was worth $30,000, my taxes didn't go up, even though I built a $200,000 home on that $30,000 because of the way they do taxes. If you have questions on gas, you see gas wells in the area or anywhere in La Plata County, just make sure they get those 3 names. I always tell you to have them call Christy Zeller at, it's like the oil and gas, La Plata Energy Council. It's like a lobbying firm, I guess you would call it, for oil and gas. You call San Juan Citizens Alliance. So you have both sides. You have like oil and gas industry, and then you call San Juan Citizens Alliance that does work to try to regulate their industry. And then you can call the county. There's always an oil and gas person you can talk to. If your customers have questions, it's good to get them answered from all 3 sources because they could be very, not different about the information they give you, but just different with like, what are your rights? Is this going to be a problem someday? Those sort of things. Let's see, how soon are you looking to build? If you think you might hold on to the land before building, remember there is a cost to that too. Whether or not you even visit your lot, homeowner fees may accrue. Though fairly inexpensive in our, okay, and then I talked about taxes accrue. But yeah, so Wilderness Lakes was a place by me, and I sold a lot of land there, and it's super interesting. So they had homeowner fees, and even though you were just on a lot and you're obviously not there ever, you still had to pay certain homeowner fees, which were going to be different than when you had a house, but you still had some. So it was annoying to people. I'd get people call and complain and say, is there anything I can do? I only own a lot, and they keep upping my fees. I'm like, well, just complain to your association, but there's nothing you can really do. If you're part of an association, you can't just not pay your fees. And, oh yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. When you were talking about oil and gas, if there's a natural gas well on the land, say it's 20 acres and it has a house on one side and the gas is on the other side, can they come in and just put another well in wherever they want on that land?
Not wherever they want, but yes, within the rules. So there used to be rules that said they had to be spaced every however far, but what with technology changes, what their permit allows them to do is it's not about where it is on the surface, it's about where they drill underneath. So even if you know, oh, I have a well on my property, so it's sucking the gas out right here, they can still put one right next to it and suck the gas all the way over here with directional drilling. So with the technology that's changed, you might see 2 wells right next to each other, even though they're going to totally different random areas. So it used to be too confusing for us to understand, even more so like now. What they usually try to do is if they have a well at the surface, you can imagine the oil and gas, the cost of what they're getting for gas right now. We have gas here, not oil. It's so little that they don't spend a lot of money making their wells. So if they have a well already, probably what they'll do is they'll take the same portal or whatever you call it, and then they'll drill that next one. So all you see on the surface is one of those things, right? But that doesn't always mean that it can't change tomorrow. So another thing to know is some gas wells, the ones that you do, the pump jacks, those only happen when it's not a great producing well. This is what I understand from oil and gas. I could be wrong. So if it's a great producing well, you know when you're like sucking water out of a hose, and once you suck it, it can just go on its own. I use it to get my aquariums clean at home with my turtles, but you're like sucking the water and then all of a sudden you can just let it go. Well, if you can imagine a gas well the same way, the pump jack's trying to get it up to the surface, but once it's doing well, all you see on the surface is like a little concrete thing, and there's still a well underneath. So if you go to a property and the seller goes, oh yeah, it's always just been this little concrete thing, there's no pump jack or anything, it doesn't mean the well can stop producing so greatly.
It just means it's producing.
It happens to be doing well. And if it doesn't 5 years from now, they might put a pump jack right back on it. So know that. And so you always just want to call. It was so nice with BP because they were a really big company, and all you had to do was call them and you say, look, I'm a buyer. I'm thinking about buying in this area. Can you just look up my property? And they go, oh yeah, I see where you're buying. You know, we don't have any wells in that area, but we're really interested in that area. So that was like, okay, there might be activity there. So even though they weren't the ones who owned the mineral rights, they were such a great resource to just talk you through, do I have to worry? And then the BP would say, oh God, we don't care about that area. Then you could feel a little more secure that that's the case. But then with fracking, everything changed because now they can get it out of places they couldn't before. Like over in Mancus, people would say, oh God, you don't have to worry about Mancus. There's no gas and oil. But as soon as fracking was allowed, that was like perfect for fracking. And so there was more of a scare there. So you just try not to answer any questions and just say, if you hear a buyer saying something stupid, that's like, well, it's not stupid to them. They don't know, but oh, there's a pump jack over there. I don't have to worry about oil and gas. It's like, well, let's make sure that that's covered for you. And if they're really freaked out about oil and gas, there's places in this county, there's no oil and gas. So they don't have to worry like up by Lemon Lake or Vicino Lake, or there's areas in Dalton Ranch. They're not gonna put gas wells in the middle of a subdivision like that. So you don't have to worry about that. But there are places that they would be more concerned, and you know, it's valid. Does that answer it a little?
Yeah, thank you.
Let me see. I wanted to get into mining. Let me see if there was anything else in my article that was important. Okay.
Can I ask another question while you're looking?
Yeah.
Can we talk about the CRP designation if you're familiar with that?
Hold that thought, and let me finish this one thing. That's a really good point.
Okay.
They're fairly inexpensive. Some subdivisions have building fees due to the heavy use of subdivision roads during the construction process, and homeowner fees may go up when you're finished building. You also might have water and sewer tap fees to be paid as well. So that's a mouthful. Wilderness Lakes, I did a lot of property selling there. And when you got your building permit, you owed the subdivision $1,000, I think it was, because think about all the dump trucks that were going to come up and down the road, and it was a dirt road. And so it always screwed up the roads. And they said, you know what? You got to give us $1,000 if you're going to build a house. So no, there's fees like that once in a while. I see them. If it's paved, I really can't imagine they're going to do that. We just happen to have a lot of dirt in La Plata County. Oh, and if you have a buyer from somewhere else that's just looking online, make sure they understand we have dirt roads here, and we have wells, and we have septic systems. Like, I'm from the East Coast. I was super excited about buying land out in La Plata County, and I came out here, I was like, oh, there's like no pavement here. And so just take everyone for where they're at. Don't assume if you've grown up here that everybody's used to that kind of thing. And a septic system, like, I don't know what that was. They don't have to be freaked out by it, but it's just the way it is out here. So the less of a big deal you make it, then they take it.
Is it me or is everybody else frozen?
Oh, let's see. It's you.
I think it's me.
Luis moving around. Yeah. So, okay. So, subdivision roads, homeowner fees, there may be water and sewer tap fees. So that last one, Engineer Village is a perfect one. Can you hear me? Somebody's me. Is that me?
Can you hear me? No, I can hear you fine.
It's almost like I'm. You hear that?
Yeah, I think it might be Leah.
Yeah, I think it's Leah.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute you and chat it out if you need a question answered. Okay, last thing on that article, and then I'll go into CRP. Oh, water and sewer tap fees. So when you buy a property in some areas, let's pick Engineer Village is the perfect one. If you're not an expert in certain things, just give it to somebody else. So you would buy a lot, it's $99,000, and then you pull a permit to build your home, and it's literally like $28,000 that you owe to different people when you pull that permit. So the cost of the land is cheap, but you have to pay to like the Wolf Preservation Fund and like all sorts of crazy places. The home, what is it? Affordable housing, you have to pay your water and sewer, your use fee. There's a list, and you just need to know like I know this is a subdivision. Give me all your lists in like one email. I want to see it all in one place. So if you have an agent, you go to a list of property up there. I know my first listing up there, I had no idea. I knew it was like $5,000 for the water. I didn't know there were all these other fees. So get it all in one place. It's the listing agent's problem to get that to you. You shouldn't have to do all that research to know. And the reason that happens is the developer's trying to make it cheap for them, and they feel like it sounds more of a bargain. It's like when you buy a car and it's $999 instead of $1,000. They're trying to make it seem like, well, the lot is cheap, but then you got to pay for all this other stuff. So it doesn't mean it's a bad deal. It's just the price isn't always the price. It's good to really know this stuff. So CRP, I'll just spend a second on that because there are classes in it. It's called, do you know what anybody know what it stands for? It's like the Conservation Resource something production. So if you're out in Hesperus is usually where I see it, and it'll say income producing property. Buy this for $50,000 for 100 acres, and it's in CRP, so you get $1,000 a year to keep your property from being farmed. So it's some tax thing or something to do with the federal government. And what they did is they said, wow, we have too much wheat, or we have too much beans. We have too many beans on the market. So we're going to pay you, farmer, Hesperus farmer, to not do anything with your land. Just keep it fallow, and we'll pay you $1,000 a year. If someone has entered into a contract like that, it's super, super hard to get out. They last like 20 years, and you have to, it used to be that you had to buy the property out of it. So if somebody else wants to go and do something with the land, know that it's actually more of a headache than it is money. It used to be like, oh, I got a couple $1,000 for just having property and I'm not doing anything with it. But when I've run the numbers more recently, like 5 years ago rather than 20 years ago, it seems like it's not that great of a deal anymore, and you don't see that advertised as much. But it means that it means that the seller entered into a contract with the federal government to not farm. Does that make sense, Stacy? So I wanted to talk about mining claims just enough to tell you don't deal with them. My very first listing was a mining claim, and I sold it in like 2 days for $25,000 because it had a 100-foot waterfall. Who knew? And it was really cool. And everyone told me not to take the listing. So know that that I got lucky, and I should have listened to everybody in my office, because for the most part, mining claims are something you want to give to someone who does mining claims. So Karen up in Silverton, Jim Lindeman up in Silverton, they do a great job. Just send it over to them. Mining claims are a way that the federal government used to, just like you could homestead down here, you could file for a mining claim up in La Plata Canyon or Silverton, and you have federal land, and there's 3 different ways you could take these claims from the federal government. There's long, skinny ones. Those are called loads because they follow where a vein is. Someone would say, I'm staking this off, and you'll always know by how many acres it is. If it's like 9.33 acres, it's a load. If it's 20 acres, it's a mill. There's 3 kinds. There's a mill. You can imagine that it's a mill site. It's where they actually process things. There's the load. That's where they tried to get it out of the ground. And then there's a placer, and I can't remember what a placer is. I was taught this like my second week in real estate. And they can have a lot of heavy chemicals. They could have like cyanide and all this really gross stuff in it. And they also could have had a mill or like something in production there, and there could be all sorts of problems. So mining claims, traditionally, you just own the stuff underneath the ground. You don't own the land. So can you build on one? You know, you own the mill. Is anybody gonna say anything? I don't know. So like the $25,000 one I sold, they built a yurt on it, whatever. It was a $25,000 lot. You still have ones all the way up in the middle of nowhere on the side of a mountain in Silverton that are like $8,000, and maybe somebody just wants to say they own it, but they'll probably never find it. It's more expensive to go survey it and to find a surveyor to survey it than to buy the property. But I just wanted you to know that you had asked about patented mines. So I called Jim Lindeman yesterday and asked him, I said, I should know this, but I can't find a good answer on Google. So a patent means that you told the federal government and they registered it in your name. It's not just like a piece of paper you had from 100 years ago that says you have a mill or a mining claim. You now patented it, so it went into a patent book. There's a book with like everybody's mining claim in it. So if you patent it, it automatically means that you own the surface rights as well. So you can now legally build, right? The Forest Service said, nope, we don't lay claim to it anymore. You have it now, it's all you. And what he told me yesterday, and I never knew before, is that every single thing up in San Juan County supposedly is patented. That doesn't mean La Plata or out in the La Plata mines, but anything up there. He said, I can't speak for anything else, but anything up here is safe. I've only in my whole career come across a couple that were questionable. Know that, and know that just because you own a mining claim doesn't mean you have access to it. So the one I sold over there, I said, like, can my person legally put a driveway in? And they said, no, that's Forest Service land. You can't get to it. So it's complicated. Send it to someone else, because the most you're ever going to get paid on it is like $300 anyway. And it's interesting to know that, but you have way more liability to be causing a problem in the contract and get in trouble. If you really want to say, do you mind if I do this with you, Jim Lindeben, so I can learn a little bit? And he'll be grumbling and probably say yes, but you won't make any money, and don't expect a referral on a mining claim. That's like his biggest joke of the day, is if you call and say, hey, I got a person looking at a mining claim. Will you do 25%? It's like asking someone for a quarter share at Purgatory, asking for a referral on that, because they're just so hard to sell. And I've sent him so many crazy customers over the years. He's still talking about some of them and what happened to them. Pricing. So if you guys have the time, I'd love to talk a little bit about pricing if you're on the other side, or if you're on the buyer side and you're trying to say, hey, I'm in Aspen Trails. That's where I did a lot of business and all of the Lemon Lake stuff. I have this lot, and they're asking $65,000 for it, and everything around them, it seems cheaper, but like, how do I price? What is this one worth the rest? So what I do is, there's a really cool way to go into GIS, and you pull up the Google map, and it has all the properties and like all their parcel maps. And then I start putting text on each property that's sold. I'll take the whole subdivision. And I did this for Engineer Village too. It's super helpful for a seller who has never been to the property to just pull up the whole Google map. And then you put text boxes on each one that's sold, what the price was and what the date was. And you go back like 3 years. And so you get it all in front of you, and this is really helpful for you as an agent. You put that all on there, and then you drive around. You go to Aspen Trails, you drive around all those lots, and obviously if they sold and there's a house on it, you're not gonna go walking around. But if there's nobody there, like, I at least walk by the property and say, oh, I get it. Oh, and another really good one is to, when you're pulling it up, put, what's that called, the topography on it. So you put there's a way to put 15-foot or 10-foot topography, and so it'll tell you, all of a sudden you see, woo, it's like going down a slope, and you go, oh, no wonder that one was so cheap. Or it's right on a county road, a lot of traffic, like 501 or 240. Those are, or especially the highway, anything that's on the road is going to be like way less money. Walk each one, drive by them at least. So then when you see it and you're driving around, you'll get it. So there'd be like, one's an engineer village, and I'd say, God, why is that one less money? And I'd go up and I go, oh, there's a huge electric line right next to it. Who wants to stare at that on their $1 million home? Okay, I get why this one's more expensive. And then you go to another one, and it's like you go way down to get to the property. So think about it. If you had a driveway and you could choose to go up or down, which one would you choose if you had Forest Lakes and you had a lot of snow? You'd probably want to go up the driveway, because then in the morning you can always go out to work, and the ones down you end up getting stuck in. So there's all sorts of things to that. Just know, like, you got to see it all before you can understand which ones are overpriced and which ones are priced right. And then it's got a well on it. How much do wells cost in the area? It used to be 20,000. I don't know what they are now. If it had a driveway roughed in, you know, some people to a driveway roughed in is like $1,000. But other people do a really good job, and they have it really done. And that could be $5,000, $10,000 worth the lot. Do you have a septic that's in? That's where you really get into it. Well, this lot has no septic. This one has one in it, but it's not a big septic. It's like, you can get really in, it's not like rabbit holes. These are important things to know. And then whether electric is there. So you have a property you're trying to price. There's no electric to it. You know it would cost. You kind of did a little calling around, and you found out it's probably going to cost $5,000 to get the electric in. Well, that means the lot's worth $5,000 less than the one that has the electric right to it. The lay of the land, if it's steep up, steep down, is there a view? That might not be worth a lot. It's just means that it's going to sell quicker. Do you have to clear a ton of trees? That can cost a lot of money. If they're big trees and there's nowhere to really build your house, that could make it worth less. Is there a lot of traffic? Is it far back in the subdivision? Tween Lakes is a perfect example. If you're right on the road, it's not worth a lot because you have too much traffic. If you're back just a little bit, awesome. And especially down some roads. But if you're like way back a whole mile into the subdivision, you're not going to be worth too much, because just think about that poor person trying to get to work in the middle of winter. How many sold per year? If you have 15 lots that look like the same thing in the same subdivision, it's not going to be worth a lot. But if you're the only one in the subdivision, just like a house that's for sale and a lot sell every year, which doesn't really happen, it's going to be worth a different amount. And what's the size of the lot? Okay, so if you had 1 acre over here and you had a ½ acre over here, it doesn't mean that your acre is worth twice as much. It just means maybe you give them a little bit because it's a nicer lot and you're probably going to put a nicer house on it. But if you had one that's 0.75 acres and it's just really, there's not a lot of place to build because there's this cliff over here. Oh, I had one like Aspen Trails, the road's here, and then I don't know if you can see me, yeah. So you have the road, and then there's like a tiny shelf, and you could build your house right there on the road, and then it dropped off. And he'd say, well, I have an acre and a half, and no one else has over an acre that's on the market right now. I say, yeah, but it's all down a hill, like nobody's gonna use it. And then if you had farming land, so if someone says, I need to sell my farm, or I have all this farming land and I don't know what it's worth, and my neighbor's is worth this, and you see the neighbor and you're just, oh my God, it's beautiful. It has all this wheat growing and it's all green and there's no weeds. And then you look at his and it's just covered in thistle and it's been overgrazed. Like those are completely different prices per acre than it would be of the other person's property. The same with if it's, I have 300 acres and there's 100 acres in forest, and then I have 200 acres in really well developed farmland. That's going to be different exactly depending on how many acres of each you have. So it can be complicated that way too. And the more appraisals you read of people's houses, if they have a lot of land with it, it's just interesting to kind of read that stuff and say, oh, that's why the appraiser thought that was worth more. Also, I did one once, the saddest story of my real estate career, but I still think I made the right decision. I had a person that I sold a lot of, it was a guy whose family had homesteaded. I had sold like 3 of his ranches off that were like the ugliest of ugly properties. And I was like, oh, someday I'm gonna get his big ranch. It's this beautiful, beautiful ranch. And I had it perfectly priced. I said, it's worth 3.2 million. I had spent years like looking at this property and I knew it exactly. And there was this huge, what are those called? Those transmission lines that go through it. So he thought it was worth one thing. I thought it was worth another. And he ended up going with someone who owns another company in town who blew smoke and said, she doesn't want to list it for more than 3.5 and it's going to sell at 3.2 million. I bet it's worth 5 million. And he's like, I'm sorry, I'm going with him. And I just didn't feel right. I was like, you can't list something millions more than it's worth and think you're going to get it. Well, the property ended up selling exactly what I thought it was going to sell at, but not with me. So he apologizes to this day, but I missed out on the sale. But anyway, it shows you knowing your land and knowing what things sell for can help you at least price things. So that was a lot to take in. Most of this will come in handy once in a while, and hopefully you don't end up having to sell a lot of land. But I always thought it was fun. You know, it's a hot summer day. You bring some sodas or beer and you meet someone out on a property and you're just walking a bunch of land. It's a lot more fun than being in some boring houses sometimes. Anybody have some questions? Here's a chat. My video and, oh, I'm sorry. I will unmute you too. Anybody have any questions? Oh, I am still, hold on.
So how do I work with buyers who are interested in a property that's a mining claim up in La Plata Canyon? What do I need to tell them? Or how do I?
What do they want to do? They just want to have a.
They want to live off grid. He's a contractor. They're from Michigan, and they're gonna live up there and have like a homestead. Like just they're gonna build their own cabin and have solar. I don't know. I haven't told them about the road.
Yeah, so they just need to know, like the one I sold, the reason it sold so quickly and so awesomely was you have Mayday, you have up La Plata Canyon, isn't it 4 miles to Mayday? And then after that, it's not plowed. So
right.
my mining claim was a quarter mile in. So this young intrepid kid could take a snowmobile down that road and go to his yurt in the middle of winter. And the cost to building was going to be a yurt, you know, he could put it anywhere. It was going to have no running water, just a cistern, and it was going to be simple. He could trek everything in. So his costs were so low, and he knew he could get there no matter what. But no one can go further up that road than that, really, in the winter. It's just reasonable. So if you have something that you can just, like Gina has had one for sale for years up that road, and it just doesn't sell because people say, well, you could build a road to it. It's like, yeah, but it's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to put the road in, and you don't even own the land. It's on like a 99-year lease. So yeah, it's not reasonable. And that sounds cute, but I just don't see it being a place to it wouldn't be a good investment.
Okay. What about contamination?
Contamination. Oh yeah. I mean, that's a serious threat. We had there was one in our office. I was reading a book about Silverton mining and history, and I was kind of horrified by the stuff they put into the ground up there, and the lawsuits back and forth about when a mining company moves out, they just kind of, okay, we're going bankrupt, that's it. So they use it, and then they claim bankruptcy and they walk away from it. So if you're buying one of these, you have no idea what's been poked into the ground, or, you know, if you have an open hole, what if some kid falls in it? There's so many liability issues. But on top of it, like one that was for sale was right in Silverton. It's not a mining claim, but it's right in Silverton. It was the old town dump. I'm like, oh my God, like from 60 years ago, like, and nobody knew it was that under the ground. But once you say that, you're like, I hope the buyers know that. Like that's a whole mess. And the person who got it, it was a gift from their ex-wife, like 40 years ago, like, oh, this Silverton property. I'm like, I wonder if they knew it was the town dump. It's almost a liability. So yeah, these are all these little romantic fantasies people have of being property, but I don't know. You could spend as much time as you want on it if it's fun for you. Otherwise, like just, if it's fun, have fun with it and learn something. And otherwise, if you have too much going on, just give it to somebody that cares.
Okay.
Which would be somebody in Silverton. And if it's La Plata Canyon, there aren't many people that really know that very well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Heather, I've got a question.
Yeah.
I was curious. I'm driving right now, so sorry. But I wanted to know what what you're kind of predicting for land sales. Do you think that they'll kind of go up a little bit because more people will want to move to the area? Like, do you kind of have a feeling for what do you think will happen with that?
That's a really good question. And I used to actually follow what was going on in land. The reasons that people buy land are usually, it goes up with the amount of sales when people can't find what they're looking for houses. So our supply a couple of years ago was really low and people would start looking at land. But I also know that there's so much land for sale, and there seems to be a big turnover of people that like thought a long time ago they might buy a second home or build a second home, and they never did. And the cost, the thing that I say no to is that with people wanting to move here, that's awesome, but it's not as much as the cost of building has gone up. There are certain things in building that have doubled in the past couple of years. One of them is concrete and the other is steel, which is like most of your house. And I guess wood too, I would think. We have a couple local timber companies, but it's so expensive for us to get material here that usually if you price a house, you know, you're looking at some big monstrosity. Say it's like Durango Hills or, you know, one of the Florida River Estates, someone that's like a 70s house and it's really big. It's like 3,000 square feet. And you know, oh my God, your people walk into it and they go, oh, it would take us like $150,000 to get this house to where we want. You're already spending 400,000 or whatever for it. The cost of you building something else is so astronomical that people usually go back to the old house and want to fix it up rather than building it themselves. It's just complicated building a house. It's always more than you think. And so buying a kind of spec home, somebody else's spec home in a, like Edgemont, what's it called, Meadows? Yeah, is a lot of times a better idea doing something like that, or Edgemont Highlands, than trying to figure it all out yourself. So I don't think that land is gonna really, it's just too much. People start looking at it and you price everything out, you put them with a contractor, and they seem to me to go back to the things that you can put a number on. Like the stuff that Jamie has for sale, Edgemont Highlands, things that are at the resort, even buying a house that someone else put the money and the time into, like the developer did that. They did 10 houses and they knew what they were, well, most of the time they know what they're getting into and they have a certain price on it. It's something a buyer can feel really comfortable about. There are so many less people that can actually go through the whole build process themselves and come out the other end without having like sold it halfway through. It's just, so no, I don't think land is really gonna go up with, even with what we have going on right now. Short, long answer to a short question.
Thank you.
Who was that? Stacy?
I don't know.
I think it was Blair.
You got anything?
Who, me?
Hosea?
Oh.
Okay, well, you guys have any ideas on next week? Anything you've been dying to ask me? Otherwise, I was thinking of something I haven't done. Stacy, tell me if this is wrong, but I don't think I did a class on inspections in like a year and a half. What to do when you have an inspection and all the things that can come up and how to write a good inspection objection. I know that's exciting.
No, I don't think so.
So I was thinking about doing that. Are you guys good with that?
That's good with me.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it next Thursday. Thanks for holding on. I'm very, very sorry I was not there at 1:15.
So I had to get on my phone because my internet crashed too.
I think it's just like non-commercial stuff that it must have just crashed.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you guys. Have a good day.
See ya. Bye.